He was just another elderly man to the strangers passing by, stooped, sunburnt, dragging a bundle of firewood across a dusty path. No one knew that he used to have a home, a family, and someone who once called him Dad. But all that changed in a single heart-wrenching afternoon when Jack, his former son-in-law, unexpectedly crossed his path. And beside Jack stood Tien, the woman who had once been his daughter-in-law, now grown mature and carrying the heavy silence of an old wound. What happened next didn't just surprise everyone, it rewrote the meaning of compassion. It was a regular summer morning in a small countryside village. Tien, like many others, had taken to the local market with a humble purpose to harvest and sell fresh lychees from her backyard trees. She greeted the old vendor with a respectful nod, requesting permission to pick a basketful to sell in town. "You can take some from the upper trees, dear," the elderly woman replied, her voice warm but tired. The lower ones were already taken by someone else. With a grateful smile, Tien accepted a worn pair of shears and made her way up the gentle slope. She was efficient and focused her fingers quick to select the ripest clusters. She remembered how her mother used to pick lychees the same way when she was a child. By the time she returned, her basket was nearly full. Down at the village checkpoint, a few men sat beneath a shaded tarp, chatting idly. She approached, offered a polite greeting, and asked for the fruits to be weighed. 20 kilos. One of the men confirmed, subtracting the weight of the basket. "Be 6,000 a kilo." She nodded, recalling the local rate. "I'll sell these at the market for 10. The money exchanged hands. The deal was made. Life moved on, or so she thought. Tien packed her lychees onto her modest pushcart and started toward the market square. But before she could cross the main road, a familiar voice called out behind her. A voice she hadn't heard in years. "Tien." She turned and froze. There, walking slowly along the path, dragging a thin branch loaded with kindling, was a figure she hadn't seen since her divorce. Older now, gaunter, but unmistakably familiar. It was her ex-father-in-law. Jack, standing just a few feet away, recognized the old man too. The three of them stood in a silent triangle of memory. Time felt as though it paused in collective disbelief. The old man wiped his brow with a trembling hand and offered a weak smile. "Just gathering firewood," he said. "Don't mind me." But they did mind. And that moment changed everything. Jack stepped forward. "Uncle, where are you staying now?" The old man hesitated. Then, with a touch of shame, he pointed down the slope toward the nearby canal. "I rest under that bridge. No one bothers me there. It's quiet." A silence fell. The kind of silence thick with disbelief, grief, and guilt. Tien's eyes welled up. Once this man sat at the head of a dinner table. He gave blessings at weddings. He held babies. And now he slept under a bridge. Without hesitation, Jack took his arm. "Come. Let's get you out of the sun." Tien followed. Words caught in her throat. What happened next wasn't scripted. It wasn't planned. But it was perhaps destined. The drive down to the canal was quiet, but heavy with questions neither Jack nor Tien could ask aloud. The old man sat in the back seat, his eyes scanning the horizon, perhaps searching for something lost long ago, pride, purpose, or just the warmth of a home. Tien had known he was struggling since the divorce, but she never imagined this. Never imagined her former father-in-law, who once lectured her about integrity, who built furniture with his bare hands, who always insisted on pouring tea for guests, first would be reduced to this. "I only stay there at night," he explained gently, as if trying to soften the truth. "During the day, I collect firewood and sell it for a few zhong. Enough for a bowl of noodles, sometimes a little more." Jack's jaw tightened. "What about your children?" he asked, even though he knew the answer. "They all have their lives," the old man said simply. "No bitterness, only resignation. And I have mine." They arrived at the bridge. Tien gasped. It was not a place fit for a human being. A narrow concrete pipe served as shelter, dark, damp, and dangerously close to the rising summer waters. A bundle of tattered blankets lay against the wall, a single tin pot beside them. Insects buzzed in the heat. The scent of mildew was thick. This is where you sleep," Jack's voice cracked. The old man nodded, unashamed. "It's cool in the summer. In the rainy season, I move to the other side where the water doesn't reach as fast. I've managed so far, but it's dangerous." Tien protested, her eyes already red. "What if the river floods at night? What if you get sick?" He smiled at her the same way he used to, when she was just a shy girl bringing rice cakes to her in-laws. My time has passed, child. I'm not afraid of these things anymore. But she was. Jack turned to her silently asking for permission. Not as an outsider, but as someone who still cared deeply. To Tien, he said gently, "We can't leave him here." "I know," she whispered. "We won't." Jack knelt beside the old man. "There's a place. A farm, actually a small one that Tien's fixing up. It's not much, but it's dry and it has a roof. You can stay there as long as you need." The old man's eyes widened. I'm not your responsibility. You were never a burden," Jack said. "And you're not starting now." Tien knelt, placing her hand over her former father-in-law's. "Even if I'm no longer your daughter-in-law, I can't pretend not to care. Let us help you." His lips trembled. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then quietly, he nodded. "All right, just until the rainy season's over." They gathered his few belongings, placed them carefully in the trunk. The old man turned back once to look at the place that had been his home, as if saying goodbye to a part of his dignity he'd buried there. Then he got in the car, and they drove away towards something better. For the first time in years, he felt warm. Not just from the sun, but from the unexpected kindness of two people who no longer owed him anything, but chose to love him anyway. The sun was beginning to dip below the trees when they arrived at the edge of the small farm. The land was quiet, peaceful, a far cry from the damp darkness of the bridge culvert. Chickens pecked lazily near the coop, and a faint breeze rustled through rows of young corn. The modest wooden house at the center of the land had chipped paint and uneven steps, but it stood solidly, promising warmth. Tien stepped out first, followed by Jack and the old man. He hesitated at the car door, eyes scanning the land like someone waking from a long sleep. His gaze fell on the patch of earth beside the house, turned and ready for planting. And for the first time in days, a flicker of hope touched his expression. "This is where you live now?" he asked, his voice soft. Tien smiled. "I'm in the middle of repairing it, staying with a friend nearby for now. But this is home. Or at least it will be." The old man nodded slowly. "It's beautiful." Inside the house, the air smelled faintly of paint and wood dust. The main room was sparse, but tidy mattress rolled up in a corner, some pots and pans stacked neatly on a shelf, and an old teapot resting on a counter. A small makeshift bed had been prepared in the back room, just a mat and blanket for now, but dry and clean. "You can sleep here," Jack said. "It's not much, but it's safe." The old man stepped inside, hands shaking as he lowered himself to the mat. His eyes closed briefly. "It's more than I deserve. No one deserves to sleep under a bridge," Tien said firmly. "Especially not you." They stayed with him for a while, fixing a simple dinner, checking the mosquito net, and making sure he had warm water to wash. He didn't talk much, but the way he moved, slower, more deliberate, betrayed how long it had been since someone treated him like he mattered. As dusk settled, Jack lit a small oil lamp and placed it beside the old man's bed. "We'll check on you tomorrow," he said. "If you need anything, just call. You have your phone, right?" The old man nodded. "Thank you, both of you." Jack looked to Tien, who stood quietly in the doorway watching her former father-in-law with glistening eyes. Then he said, "Good night, Uncle." Before they left, the old man spoke again, voice trembling. "You know, when I lost everything, I didn't expect kindness. I thought I'd disappear quietly. But now seeing you two like this, maybe not all is lost." Tien stepped forward, kneeled beside him, and whispered, "You were never lost, just waiting to be found." And with that, they left him to rest for the first time in a long while, not under the open sky, but under a roof built from forgiveness and second chances. The morning mist hadn't yet lifted when Tien returned to the farm. She carried a thermos of hot tea, a small bag of pastries, and an uneasy heart. She hadn't slept much. Her thoughts had drifted between the man sleeping in the back room and the man who had stood beside her the entire time, Jack. She found her former father-in-law awake, seated on the steps of the porch, watching the sun rise with a quiet serenity. "Good morning," she said, handing him the tea. He took it with both hands, eyes grateful. "You didn't have to come this early. I wanted to." They sat in silence, broken only by birdsong and the distant clucking of hens. Then softly, the old man spoke. "I used to sit like this every morning with my wife," he said, "before the house got too quiet, before the children left, before I forgot what family felt like." Tien turned toward him. "Family doesn't always leave. Sometimes it finds a way back." He looked at her, eyes watering. "You don't owe me anything, child. Especially after what happened with your marriage. I'm not doing this because I owe you," she said. I'm doing it because I care." Moments later, Jack arrived carrying a few wooden planks over his shoulder. "I thought I'd fix the window in the back room," he said casually, though the look in his eyes held something deeper: admiration, perhaps, or peace. The old man nodded, then stood slowly. "Jack." Jack paused, waiting. "I know I wasn't the easiest man. I held on to pride longer than I should have. I didn't support you when I should have. But yesterday, you made me feel human again." Jack smiled faintly. "You raised a strong daughter. That alone tells me everything I need to know." For a long moment, the three stood there, former in-laws, strangers, turned family souls tied not by obligation, but by empathy. Later that afternoon, as they shared a simple meal of rice and boiled greens, laughter filled the tiny room. Not the laughter of perfect harmony, but of healing. Of cracks being filled, not erased. Of bridges being rebuilt. "I've decided to stay," the old man said between bites. "Only if you'll have me." Tien looked at Jack. Jack nodded. "We'd be honored." That night, under the wide rural sky, the farm glowed with a kind of quiet light, not from electricity, but from something far rarer: reconciliation. In that house, titles like ex-husband or former father-in-law lost their weight. What remained was respect, gratitude, and the deep understanding that family isn't always about names. It's about showing up. Even after everything, especially after everything. Weeks passed. The old man, once a shadow under a bridge, had become part of the farm's rhythm. He tended the garden, fed the chickens, repaired an old bench under the tree where he liked to sit in the late afternoon sun. And every evening when the sky turned golden, he would quietly say, "Thank you" to no one in particular. Or perhaps to the life that had given him a second chance. Tien continued to visit him daily, sometimes with groceries, other times just with stories. She laughed more easily now, her voice lighter. There was no longer a need to explain her choices to anyone. Her heart knew they were right. One evening, she stood beside Jack near the edge of the rice field, watching the wind ripple through the green stalks. "I used to believe helping someone from my past would open old wounds," she said. Jack replied, "Sometimes reopening a wound is how it finally heals." She turned to him, eyes soft. "You didn't have to help. He's not your family anymore." Jack shook his head. "Family doesn't end with divorce papers. It ends when compassion ends. And mine hasn't." Their hands brushed, not by accident. Inside the house, the old man hummed an old lullaby, one he hadn't sung since his children were young. The sound was low, imperfect, but it reached the door where Tien paused to listen. She looked at Jack, then back at the house and whispered, "We're building something again, aren't we?" Jack smiled. Maybe something stronger than before. That night, the stars above the farm blinked with quiet approval. The air was thick with summer, but hearts were lighter. No grand declarations. No need for titles or obligations. Just people choosing each other, choosing kindness, choosing to stay.